Hey guys! Last week I made this DIY solar powered illuminated house number sign but had some issues. I had this tail sticking out, but most importantly the numbers were not visible at night. So this week I figured it out how to fix those issues and made this beautiful illuminated house number sign that I love. And so does my neighbors. It's visible from everywhere. I like to share with you how I fix the issues. First, I disassembled everything. I wanted to drill holes behind the numbers to lit them up. I marked the spots with my Sharpie where I wanted to drill holes. I drilled lots of holes. But as you can see, that didn't work out. This was not acceptable. Numbers were not visible still. It just looked weird. So I had to change the plan. I decided to make a see-through numbers from epoxy. For that, I had to make my own mold using silicone and cornstarch. I also used some little food coloring. It was fine in the beginning. It worked out pretty good and it wasn't sticking to my hand, but after a while it started to stick. But unfortunately I ran out of cornstarch, so I decided to use some flour. I thought, why not? If cornstarch works, flour works as well. But I was wrong. This just turned out to be a big fail. I just ran out, got myself a new can of cornstarch and start doing the whole thing again. This time I didn't use any food coloring, just in case that did something too. And the dough became so hard all of a sudden. The orange dough, it wasn't even flexible. But the second time I got the dough right. It has a good consistency. It wasn't sticking to my hands. I was able to knead it nicely. So I had another number, wooden number from an arts and crafts store. I went ahead and got those to use it as a mold for mold making. So I wrapped my dough around the number to get its shape. By the way, I use these acrylic placemats underneath the silicone mold so silicone won't stick to my table. I let the mold cure for 3 to 4 hours. When I came back, number 1 was nice and cured. As you can see, it comes off very easily. I was able to remove the number easily. Before I pour the dough over the number, I apply some cornstarch on the number just in case so it won't stick. And I was able to remove it very easily. Here it is, nice mold. But I can't say the same thing for number 0 because it just didn't cure. You see, it's still soft after so many hours. It's still soft. That's probably because I used an old open silicone and they said expired silicone can do that. I didn't have any more silicone and I didn't want to run to the store again. I found these sculpting clays at home. I thought they would work, so I decided to give it a try. I wanted to actually see if clay works, to be honest, so for the future references. But clay was too hard to push in the number. So I decided to wrap the clay around the number instead of pushing the number in the clay. So that worked out fine. But then the middle was the problem. I solved that by putting some little piece of clay in the middle. It didn't stick, so I had to use a hot glue to stick it. So at the end it worked out fine. I mixed my resin, follow the instruction on the package. 1 part resin, 1 part hardener. I got them from Amazon. I also got myself a translucent dye in black color. So I put the dye little by little, just testing. I don't want it to be too dark so I won't be able to see the light. And I add some also sparkles just to make it fun. I pour resin into my molds. If you have never done resin projects before, it takes little practice. It's not an easy product to handle. Just wanted to warn you guys. So after 24 hours, my resin was cured. First I removed the silicone mold, which was fine. It was perfect actually. It just needed little bit of sanding. It wasn't smooth, but I was gonna put another layer anyway, so that wasn't a big deal. But unfortunately, clay wasn't that easy to remove. So as I said earlier, this was kind of an experiment. I was wondering if you can make a mold out of clay for epoxy. You can if you are really desperate, because I did have the number, okay? It's just that cleaning process, it took a while to clean that mess. And the result was horrible. This project turned out to be a parade of failures. At this point, please feel free to hit the dislike button. I won't get offended. I had to come up with new idea that will work. I closed up all the holes with a wood filler, except left 2 openings to feed the LED light through to run under the numbers. This would be the best way to do it. I should have done this from the beginning. I am very much embarrassed with all my fails, but I decided to share with you so you don't waste your time with doing the same mistakes. The challenge was not to cut the LED light strip and run it under the numbers, and also turn it back and run it behind the board. I used double pointed staples to secure them in place. I turned it around and wrapped the LED light around the plank, again using pins and some nails, exterior nails. Then it was time to install the numbers on the plank. I had to drill holes for screws. I wanted to countersink the screws, but I didn't have countersink head, so I used a drill bit as big as the screw's head to create a little pocket to countersink the screw heads. I recommend you to use a countersink bit because you might accidentally drill a huge hole on your epoxy. When I installed the numbers on the signboard, I used some spacers, I used some plastic spacers, some rubber washers, just to raise it up off the board. Once the numbers were installed, I was ready for the second coat of epoxy. I prepare my epoxy mixture and made sure numbers are leveled. This time I used more black dye than before because the first one turned out to be brown more than black. You might wonder how am I going to unscrew those numbers ever, since I covered it with epoxy. Well, I am just hoping I don't have to ever. I just didn't want to see the screw heads. After the second coat of epoxy, I had these dimples formed on my numbers and that bothered me. I decided to put one more coat of epoxy. Each epoxy coat takes 24 hours to cure, guys, don't forget. So this is 3 times of epoxy makes 3 days of waiting. So epoxy is kind of a waiting game, and you just have to be patient. As a final touch, I painted the side of the numbers with brass gilding paint. My sign was finally ready to be hung after so many days of trials and errors, and I think this time I got it right. I used 3 inches long exterior screws to hang the board on my wood siding. Finally, I am very pleased with the result. It looks really nice. Love how it turned out. no dimples. And here is at night. Absolutely stunning. I love it. I hope you guys did too, and I hope you try to make one for yourself. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!